three-part series, and so today we're talking about research and note-taking skills. This is a webinar for CTD, Center on Technology and Disability, and we are from the Simon Technology Center at Pacer. And my name is Tara Bress.
My name is Sarah Giffen-Hunter. We are both assistive technology specialists at Pacer Simon Technology Center.
So today you're joining us on live stream, and so just a tip here for you for the volume. It's automatically set to 50%. So if it's too quiet or you're having troubles hearing, try increasing the volume. Also, using headphones can help improve your sound experience. So keep those things in mind if you're having trouble. But if you have questions, you can click on the chat button on the window. We have an icon there pictured for you so you can see what that looks like. And it's on the right-hand side of our screen. And so then if you have questions, you can click on that and ask your questions, or if you also have comments and you want to communicate with others who are also listening and share some ideas, that's a great opportunity to do that too. But also on the left-hand side of our screen, you can see the icon of what looks like for event posts, and that's where you will find links to the handouts. So if you have not accessed those yet, you can go ahead there and find the handouts. If you want to see any messages that are coming through about the webinar. Also, at the end of the workshop, 5 minutes before the end of the workshop, there will be a posting for an evaluation, and we please ask that you complete that evaluation, and if you do, you'll be able to receive the certificate of completion for today's webinar.
So real quick, just a summary of what we plan to cover in today's hour. We're going to give a quick intro to Pacer and what we do here at the Simon Technology Center. Tara's going to give an overview of strategies for learning, and we're also going to spend a little bit of time discussing the purpose and the methods behind note-taking. And then when we launch into strategies and tools, we're going to talk about note-taking in a couple different categories, audio, and then also reading and research. And then we will wrap up that by some information about how to organize those notes that you've taken before we wrap up at the end. So that's our plan for today. So Pacer was started as a parent advocate program over 30 years ago. And we advocate for children of all ages with disabilities and work to make sure they get have their educational needs met at school and at home. And we do have a number, and we have grown and grown. We have a number of programs that are actually national. So one of those is the Bullying Prevention Center. And another one is our transition program. It's a National Transition and Employment Center program for high school, young adult age people. And if you check out our website, there is a lot of information about our services, as well as a lot of publications on many different topics related to people with disabilities and assistive technology. And that is www.pacer.org. And then the Simon Technology Center then is just one of the programs at Pacer, and that's where Tara and I both work. And we do a variety of things. Some of our programs are available to national people outside the state of Minnesota. We didn't say that yet. We're here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We do answer questions and give information by phone, by email. We also have a lending library of technology with an online catalog. And out-of-state, we do have out-of-state memberships, and we do ship items to people that are out of state. And we also have quite a few free online workshops and webinars such as this, and we always, when we do broadcast them, we always record and archive, so those are available on our website as well.
All right. So through this 3-part series on study skills, we'll be covering many ways to increase, deepen, and retain what a student is learning. So today is part 1. We're going to talk about note-taking while listening and reading. To part 2, we're going to cover strategies and tools for studying. And then part 3, we'll talk about some ideas and tools for managing focus and attention while learning and reading and studying. So you'll want to join us for those parts as well. As we start today, we want to touch on some overarching ideas, and that is priming the mind before learning. The learning experience can help to start to activate the brain to better relate to and understand the information. So some ideas to prime the mind are things like thinking about what a student already knows before they're learning about the topic, learning some vocabulary before diving into the reading or the learning, the instruction from class, watching educational videos on the topic, or reading cliff notes before reading the full book. Spacing out learning over time can help make it more understandable and help to remember it better. So spacing out reading and listening over time instead of just cramming it all into one session. Dr. Glenda Thorne on the Center for Developmental and Learning website writes about the helpfulness of experiencing different methods of learning that utilize different and multiple senses. And so of the senses we have listed here today, we'll mostly be focusing in on the sight and the hearing. But in part 2, we're going to cover additional methods of learning and different strategies as well. So again, we encourage you to join us for part 2.
Okay, so what is the purpose of note-taking? Taking notes is actually an information processing tool, so it is a lot more than just recording facts or data that is coming at you. You know, there are kids that say, oh, I just try to write down everything the teacher says. And so this is an important point that we want to address. There's a lot of mental engagement happening during whether it's a lecture, a video, or some way that they're receiving information. And so to foster that mental engagement, it's important that we use tools and strategies that encourage them to kind of sift through the information, to let the primary or the important facts come to the top, or the categories, or so to mentally organize the information is part of that process that is happening when the information is coming at them, and then they are somehow recording it in whatever way to be able to capture the most relevant, most important information to be able to access it later. And then also just to aid in reflection right now while it's happening, as well as later. And then the note-taking helps to stabilize the knowledge, and it also helps you to be able to apply the information later. So going back to the information later may help to understand a complex topic. It may be to review the information to prepare for a quiz. It may be to write a report. It may be to solve a math problem. So these are some of the things that we want to encourage and foster through the note-taking process.
So we all learn differently, and each individual, they should find their own note-taking system that works best for them. But also keep in mind that the method that a student uses might change for different classes or different topics too. So we're going to show a variety of several different note-taking methods as well as options. But before we do go into the methods, I want to touch on some, again, overarching strategies that can help no matter what method a student is using. Dr. Boyle's strategy called Cues Plus can give students some direction on what information to take notes on instead of taking notes on everything. He developed a strategic note-taking form that we'll look at in the next slide, but I want to look at the strategies that he points out here. And so teaching teaching students how to watch for cues from a teacher can help them identify what is the important information to take notes on. Dr. Boyle recommends looking for number cues, also known as organization cues. That's when a teacher mentions a list or states a number of parts of a topic that are coming up. Also looking for importance cues, and that's going to be things like the teacher saying that this fact is important, or remember this for a test, or it's coming up on a quiz, repeating specific information multiple times, or watching for nonverbals like speaking louder, being more animated, longer pauses, more eye contact, things like that. Using words efficiently helps to keep pace with the teacher, but also synthesizes the information as it's being received. Dr. Boyle points out abbreviations, pictures, and symbols can be used as well as words and phrases and key topics instead of full sentences. Educator Susan Kruger recommends to her students to take notes like you're texting, or to like use words like you're entering in keywords or phrases for a Google search, and that really helps. It's a very relatable example for students to use to really minimize the words that they're using to get the main points. And even when writing down summaries, it can save time to use fragmented sentences and not writing in those complete sentences. Another helpful idea is using coding. So coding notes can be using color. It can be color in the font, the pen that the student's writing in, or it can be a highlighter. And so there can be colors designated as certain idea or categories, such as dates, people, events, vocabulary examples, important information and tips, things like that. It's helpful to not use too many colors and have a key code so a student knows and remembers what those colors mean. And then using symbols too can be helpful. A star for something important, or a T for something on a test, question mark for something that they have a question on, things like that. So here is Dr. Boyle's note-taking form, the strategic note-taking form, what he called it. To fill out the form, students have to fill out three main sections. So and that's for each idea that the teacher presents. And so there's noting 3 to 6 main ideas, writing a brief summary, and then writing down any new vocabulary. And so for each new topic or idea that the teacher presents, these 3 things need to be noted. The outlining method is a strategy or method that many of us are familiar with. It can result in really organized notes, seeing relationships between ideas easily with the indentations, but it can be challenging if the relationships are not clear, or if the teacher is moving quickly through the information. This charting method can be a really easy and quick way to add in ideas, but it's best used for topics where there are the information there's similar parts to each bit of information presented. So this can be working well for a history class, so events and people and dates and location, things like that. So then that same information is populated in for each fact that this teacher is presenting. The mind mapping can be a very visual way to interact with the information, and it's very engaging, but it also can be easy to become lost between topics and details. The Cornell Note-taking system is where you divide the page into 3 sections. The left side, the narrow column, is for key ideas, maybe questions, prompts. The right-hand side is all of the information, the facts, the details. And then the summary is at the bottom where the student will fill that in towards the end of class. And then it can be helpful and useful for even quizzing themselves, the student to quiz themselves, because it's already set up that way. A student needs to remember to keep spaces between ideas. We had a question.
What about when your student can't spell or handwriting is difficult?
We had a question about when handwriting is difficult or a student has a hard time spelling. We will be providing or showing a few tools. These are just methods and strategies right now we're talking about, but we're just about to dive into the tools. And those can be helpful for when handwriting is a challenge. They could be helpful for spelling, but here the main idea is not necessarily accuracy of spelling, unless if it is a name or a date, like those things that need to be important, but that the student knows what they mean, and that's what is important, whether it's spelled correctly or not. So with that, we're going to go into some tools here.
Any other questions at this point before we transition? Okay, great. So our first area of tools are going to be covering audio. So in a setting where information is being verbally presented in a lecture, could be a video, a meeting, and the individual wants to record the audio in a way that they can go back and reference that information later to complement their visual notes that they take in whatever manner. We're going to show you 3 different approaches here, 3 different tools. And the first one being the LiveScribe Echo Smart Pen. And I'm going to go ahead and get that, if you would bring up the camera here. Yeah. And so, this is, what you're looking at here is the Smart Pen. And let me go ahead and turn it on. So, a couple important things to explain is this is a special notebook and from LiveScribe. And they come in various sizes, but the paper in the notebook is quite unique. Let me just focus on that a little better there. So the paper actually has microdots on it and communicates with the pen. And the pen, you can see here, here's the readout window. It's turned on. It shows the battery and the time and the date stamp and all that. But the pen actually has the ability to record. It has the ability, it has a microphone to play back. And it has a regular ink tip in it that we'll use with the notebook. And it also has a camera inside the end of the pen. Not that you need to really know all of that, but it helps to know on how it operates. So the camera is actually keeping track of where we are on the page in order to sync up what it is recording with what we write. So I'm going to just go right ahead into a demonstration. So if I just imagine I am in a classroom and I am about to hear a lecture and I'm going to take notes. So one of the beauties of the Smart Pen is it is recording all the audio so that the student then can sort of be more relaxed, be more tuned in to listening in a comprehension sort of way instead of listening to record everything that they think they need to know. So some of the cues that Tara was talking about can be really helpful here. So the important topics, here's what we're going to talk about today, the lists, this is on the test, are things that we would want to capture in our notes so that we can go back to it later. Let me demonstrate. So here we are. I'm going to tap on the bottom where it says record. And it made a very soft noise. Let me know that it is now recording, as well as the timestamp moving. So this is, today's date is there, and this is biology class. And today's topic is going to be cells. And then the teacher goes on. And so some important words that you will need to know. And so let's say that I am just writing the word, but not trying to write the definition or anything else the teacher says about it. So that the teacher's talking about paramecium and I need to go back and find out what was so important about that. Then all of that is synced up with just that one word there. And then the next one is, here are all the different functions of a cell. So I'm going to write function there. And then I might write, and then she listed 5 different things. And then I am just listening, and the audio's going. One of the things I like to think is that then maybe a student is listening and also at the same time assessing their understanding of the material. So they're more likely to think about it and then, oh, I don't understand that, and be able to take the time to maybe formulate a question. And then, so we're going on and on down here, and maybe I didn't understand something that the teacher said, and so I put a big question mark, and I put like, look it up later. I wasn't able to ask a question at that point. And then let's say at the end, another thing I really like about the Smart Pen is, let's say that the teacher is giving the homework assignment, and maybe it's complicated. And so maybe there is step 1, do this research, choose your topic, step 2, step 3. And so if there are, you know, a lot of features or requirements for that, then those are being captured. And then they can go back and simply find that. So now I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. So by clicking on the stop, it has now stopped. And so the pen is smart in that it knows where it's synced up. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, okay, I better go look up what that thing was that I was totally confused about. So I'm hoping you will be able to hear this when I click on it. Big question mark. And I put like, look it up later. I wasn't able to ask a question at that point. And then let's say, okay. And likewise, I can jump around anywhere in here. I can make bookmarks. There are actually a lot of other things a Smart Pen will do. There's a menu here of different things that all of it is based on touching on different things. So I can use the calculator, a lot of things that we won't cover today. But anyway, for note taking, this is what is really valuable, is that ability to just add very brief notes. In addition, I think is really helpful, you know, maybe drawing a diagram of the cell and just simply getting that basic diagram down, and then all the things that the teacher is saying about it as she's drawing it and describing it are just recorded and not trying to write it down in text. So then this this is a pen cast. So the whole physical text from the notebook and the audio recording then there's a cord that connects to the pen, and that goes and it gets downloaded to your computer. And so this is the Echo Pen, and so there is Echo Desktop, which is a program that then uploads these pen casts, and that way you don't have to store everything on your pen, although it does hold quite a bit of time. 2 gigabytes is what this one is. And then on the desktop it works the same way. So it has a picture of the actual notebook page, and you can click on and hear the audio synced up with your notes. And I believe we have another question.
That's a very good question. The question was, when teaching a student note-taking skills, would you present multiple methods at the same time or in progression, or would you just focus in on one and then move forward with that? I would start with one, but how long you're going to stay on that one depends on how well maybe the student is interacting with that method. If the student is not connecting well with that, not finding success with the method, then perhaps moving on quickly to another method. And this is going to be really a student-by-student basis, and your interactions with the student and your observations of how they're learning with it. And so it'll be really use your judgment as you're observing the student, because sometimes it might be a situation where the student needs a little time to get used to it and learn how to use it, but other times it's really not working and not a good fit. So that's going to be kind of your job to do that assessment. All right. So we're going to move on to the next tool called Audio Note 2. So Sarah just showed the smart pen, and that is, some students really, really like the feel of pen and paper. And when that's the situation, that is a really good tool. Some students do like to use other technology options on iPads, tablets, or computers. So the next two options we're going to talk about are going to be those options on tablets and computers. So Audio Note 2 is available on the iPad as well as on the computer as well, in Android and Windows. So several different platforms it's available on. And this is going to be the same kind of concept or idea where you have a paper, you're doing synchronized note-taking. So notes that you take with your writing or notations are going to sync up and be linked with the audio. Thank you. Sarah's opening the camera so you can see my iPad here. So here we have audio note, and what we see looks like a tablet paper. And so there's a few different ways we can add in our information. So first, we're going to tap on the record button, the red button. So now it's recording. And we have the option to type. So right now is the T. So if this is on the iPad, so if we connected a keyboard to it, we could use the keyboard for quick note-taking, or we can use the on-screen keyboard as well. Another option we can have is to use our own stylus or finger to draw, or even to handwrite if a person wants to handwrite. And so we can draw symbols and graphs. And then we can go back later to listen to the audio with that. Also, we have a highlighter option to highlight important information too. And then another neat feature built in here is a camera feature. So if, let's say that the teacher has a diagram that they have on the board that they're drawing that the student wants to take a picture of, or maybe they're in science and they're doing a science experiment and they want to take pictures of the steps along the way. They can go ahead, use the camera to take a picture of the information, and then it will save it inside of our notes. And then it does the same pairing and syncing as we're listening to playback. So if we stop the recording, we press on play. So if you noticed, I tapped on a part of my note and it highlighted blue. So that means, and then we see in the audio line bar up here that it's positioned it partway through at the same time I made that note. We press play. So now it's recording. And then we can hear the playback at that time. And so this helps us, again, to capture all of the audio and all of what's going on and take brief notes so we can focus in on the content and understanding. The next one I want to show you.
Question?
Don't see any questions.
Oh, okay. She did. Okay.
And the next one I want to show you is called Sonoscent Audio Note Taker. And again, this one is going to provide that audio recording and then the ability to take notes, brief notes at the same time. This one, we're going to tap on record. So it's starting a new recording. And if you notice, there's an audio bar at the top. So every time it hears a pause, it's going to pause in our audio note, our audio bar. And how this helps is to go back to specific parts. It gives a little more clear visual definition of the audio and what was said. We also can highlight in colors. So if the teacher is talking about a really important topic right now, or they said this is going to be on a test, and I want to come back to this because I want to listen to it again, I can make sure that is in a specific color, and you can customize what these colors mean. Right now, just automatically it's set up for red is important, and then there's some other colors. Also, if you have questions, you can go ahead and tap in a specific color if you didn't understand a spot and you want to come back and review it again. So this can help with color coding your information. Additionally, what we can do is take pictures as well with this one, and we can also do the same scribbling or the note-taking with diagrams. So take a picture, and this will be linked in with our audio. And then I started a new section. So only one picture or one handwritten note can be per section. Also in the software, I'll show you, we can download or upload PowerPoint files to link with this as well. And so let's...
Question?
We have a question.
Yeah, you have a couple of questions here.
Okay.
What are students who are blind using for note-taking?
That is a good question. What are students using for note-taking who are blind? I don't know what is common for students who are blind, but just thinking about some of these tools and what could be used. For example, the Smart Pen could be used to note with symbols on using foam backing, so using the Smart Pen paper, the LifeScribe paper with foam backing, and then they can fill on a page where their symbols and notes are.
Mm-hmm. I mean, most likely a student has a scribe. I mean, that is probably the most likely thing, is a student has a scribe, or certainly at college they would have accommodations like the PowerPoint given to them, and the ability to sync up. Were you going to show that on there, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if these programs that I'm showing are compatible with VoiceOver. That would be a really good question, something to look into. But if they're compatible with VoiceOver, a student could use some audio recording device, these apps, or then additionally just a digital recorder, just a handheld digital recorder that they can operate too, is an option if they want to capture the audio, because sometimes that can be helpful, going back to the audio.
You want to go over there?
Yep. Okay, so I want to briefly show Sonosense Audio Note software program, because I want to show you how then you can populate in the PowerPoint slides. Also, PDF pages can be populated in here as well, and you don't have to have the images. You can just go about the audio recording without having the image on the side, but this can be helpful to pair in the audio with the PowerPoint slide. And then also you can type in text too. So having keywords and main ideas and things that a student wants to remind themselves of can be helpful as they go. So was there another question?
I'll save some for the end.
Okay.
I just wanted to keep moving so we don't miss anything.
All right. So now moving on to, we covered some tools for note-taking while listening in class or listening to some information. Now there's also note-taking while reading. And so here posted are just 3 methods. There's many methods out there. And so here's just 3 examples. I'm not going to go into them in detail. If you want more information, you can look them up on the internet to get very specific information. But I just wanted to cover just some general ideas that are posted commonly for reading methods, and that are kind of some general ideas through these 3 as well. And so that is activating background knowledge to set the stage for receiving new information, previewing and surveying material for headings, topics, vocabulary things coming up before they start the reading, creating questions in anticipation of what they're going to be learning as they are going to be doing the reading. Reading multiple times the first time through, not taking any notes at all, but just reading for comprehension, and then the next time or 2 through to then stop and take notes. And then after reading, writing down answers to questions and then writing down summaries, and then saying some of these things out loud can also be another method of learning and engaging. And then lastly, they can quiz and test themselves on what they have learned. And so now we're going to go through some tools to take notes while reading.
So the first one is Evernote, which is this green elephant icon over here. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to a Chrome browser. Oops. Yeah, got it. Good. So this is the Evernote website. So Evernote is a very cross-platform tool. And so right now I am just on the browser, and we are logged into our account. So this is our Evernote account. And the way that Evernote is set up has notebooks. So there on the left-hand side, you see the notebooks. It has recent notebooks at the top. So the ones that I've opened more recently are there. But really all of them are here in alphabetical order. So for a student, making a notebook for each class, making a notebook here, I've got one that is just called whale research. So all the research that I'm doing for my whale report will be popped into this notebook. And then within the notebooks are notes. And those notes take on a wide variety of format. And one of the great things about this is for doing research is the ability to go online and find something. Now it's just at the notes. Let's see, I want to go to whale research. And so there is one note in there already, an article that was found. And then the ease with which, so the Evernote web clipper is up here in the top bar. It's, again, the little elephant icon. And so when I am looking at different information, so I found a website with some information that I want to come back to and use for my, my research, then from that website I just click on this. So that is an extension, the web clipper. I just click on the little elephant and it brings up this box and it asks me what I want to clip. I'll clip a simplified article. So there you see it's going to clip the article without a lot of the ads and such. And it is already set to put it in the whale research notebook. I can also add a tag if I want. So this is going to just be basic facts. And then I'm going to save. And you can see there it tells you it's clipping it. And it's ready to go back to later. So now I'm going to close that. And I'm going to go here, and when I reload that, then my new clipped note should be in there. And there it is, basic facts about whales. So this Evernote can be useful for, you can actually just go in and hit the plus button and just start making notes from right there. So I could take notes in class and just save it, or take photos, web clippings, all kinds of things. And so there's the notes and there's the notebooks. And part of the power of it is being able to access it from any kind of device, your phone, your iPad, whatever. So that's Evernote. And I think I'll go back to the PowerPoint.
Okay, so when we're thinking about a student taking notes as they're researching, a lot of times they come across a great article or a great bit of information, but then they want to pull out specific details and bits of information, maybe a sentence or a paragraph or so. In Evernote, we saw how Sarah was saving full articles, but it's a little more challenging to save in smaller bits of information. So the next ones I'm going to show you dive into the power of saving those bits of information. So I'm going to show you how that works. The first one I'm going to look at is Diigo. And so this one, as we are at a website, we are able to highlight the information that we want to save. And then it gives us a very small window, if you can see that in the center here, options of highlighting or adding in your own sticky note. That would be a note that you type of a thought you have, a question, whatever it is. And so then now we're seeing this is showing that it's bookmarked. This page is bookmarked as well as we have a highlight here. We can also see in our Chrome extension that we have the bookmark then on this web page. So now we go back to our library. Let's refresh this so we can see the new bit of information that we have. And we'll see the citation, the location or that article here listed, as well as the note that we took. And so we can see all of the notes listed underneath that specific item. So that's a way to pull out specific notes. But then also we can go a little bit further and go into an outline and to be able to organize the the notes here, and so we can move these around as we see fit. We can add in and we can type in notes as well. So this can be helpful for then now moving the next step process of we have collected our ideas and now we're moving into the process of either gathering an outline for studying purposes or for our writing purposes. SiteLighter is it's similar. Sorry, before I move on to that, I do want to say that Diigo is cross-platform so that you can collect notes from an iPad or an Android device as well, but I'll note that this outliner feature is not quite as functional on a tablet as it is on the computer, but there is a way to then save notes on a tablet device. SiteLighter, the next one, is similar in how we can collect notes and how we can organize those notes that we have collected. So if we open up that toolbar there, the SiteLighter bar, then we can highlight and then we can select our project, go into the Minnesota project, and then it's going to gather that fact. It's extracting the details, so then we can add in our own comments here. It's also capturing for us bibliographic information to do citations and create our bibliography. We say save, and so then we can go in and we can organize our notes as well by viewing our projects, and then we can see all of our captures, and then we can put them into an outline and then further draft them. SiteLighter is not available or an option on a tablet device or a mobile device, whereas Diigo is. So there's just different tools that you can use on different devices. So the next one is the Read and Write for Google by Text Help. They have a different way of collecting the information. So if we go in here to a web page and we open the toolbar, we can highlight information we want to save. We assign a color to it. We'll gather a couple here so you can see what this looks like when we have a few of them. And then we extract those out, and we can choose which colors, and we can choose how it's organized, by position or by color. So how we would want to use these differently is if it's by color, maybe that's going to be great for a study guide. And so different colors have specific meanings to them, such as important or vocabulary or date, event, things like that. And so then we can see them grouped, whereas if it's by position, that might be more helpful for maybe for the writing purposes or making a project. So now it's going to direct us to a Google Drive document where it's going to list our highlights here. And so each article that is notes are taken online is going to have its own separate Google Drive document. And so these are not going to be collaborated into one location where you can then organize between different articles. So this can be very helpful for studying more so. VoiceStream Reader is an app on the iPad that you can take notes as you are reading. And so I'll just show you that feature really quick in VoiceStream Reader. So you can upload reading documents from a variety of locations, including PDF files, EPUB files, and then from the internet as well. And so I'm just going to open one example here, the Velveteen Rabbit. I have some highlights I've already taken, but we can just highlight by pressing. Let's go back to our plain text. Pressing on some text here, and then we have the option of highlighting or note, and then we go in and we see what our highlights and notes are. And then I might be in the wrong file here. So, okay, so here we have a few notes listed, and so we can extract those out, and then we can have them in a Google Drive document. And so just like Read and Write for Google, we're going to have a listing of our notes. And I just want to make a quick note here that in digital textbooks and library materials, you're often restricted to what their platform is, or their tool, their window, and what tools and features they have in there. A lot of times they might provide annotation tools, but some things you might want to look for is the ability to extract those notes out.
Great. Okay. So lastly, we want to talk a little bit about organizing all this information that we are trying to record and intake. So several different strategies to organize this information. The first being mind mapping, and then graphic organizers, and then sort of planning and outlining. And these tools can be used during the active note-taking process, or they can also be used later when you are organizing or reviewing the information. Some of the tools are things that you can download and print or complete online and save or email. So let me just jump right in here to the mind mapping tools. The first one being Inspiration, which is a software that we have on our laptop. There is also an app for the iPad and tablet. And this is a great one for the classroom. And it can be used, let me go ahead and open up Inspiration here. There we go. Okay, so Inspiration has a bit more. I'm going to show you a second option, which is called MindMup, which is free. Inspiration is $39.95 for the software for your computer, or $9.99 for like an iPad app. But it is much more robust than the free mind mapping tools. So here we see the starting screen for Inspiration. And what I want to show you, so this can be used for brainstorming. This can be used, I want to show you the templates. So they have templates that you can start out with. So if I go to Science and then I open this one, it's going to open a mind map that's already got some structure to it. So a compare and contrast, similarities, differences. So that's one. So then I can just go and actually type into these and save it as a mind map. I can also, let's go back. And so within each of these categories, there are numerous different templates for a starting point. Here's one that is the what I know, what I wonder, and what I want to learn, set up like a mind map. Now, let me open a sample. Okay, so here's a whales. Whoops. That's not the right one. Open I'll do my robots. There we go. So here's a mind map that is started. And so you can see this could be, it could be during a lecture, could be starting with the middle bubble. This is going to be about robots, and then different categories branching off of that. Or it could be that I already have my content from my research, and I am now sort of using this to organize it. So I've got up here, I've got, well, what is the purpose of robots? And then all these kind of ideas that are branching off of that. And then one of the really powerful tools is that this Inspiration will switch it into an outline view. So I'm going to click on that, and there it's taken all my bubbles and put it into an outline format. And then within that you can select and move things around from this view. So I could select the cost, and I could move it up, make it the second category, and it just does that for you. And then I could also go back to the diagram view, and I can move things around here, and it will then again be reflected in the outline. So that is Inspiration. Like I said, there's also an iPad app. And let me show you, let's see, how do I get back to Chrome? There. Okay. Okay. So MindMup is actually an app that is within Chrome. And I'll show you right here. If I go over to the left-hand side and click on my apps, it is this funny-looking squiggle guy, his little mind map dude. And so I'm going to go over here. It saves, links up with Google Drive. And so I've got a MindMup here that I started. And it's not quite open yet. It's always a little bit of a problem to get it to open, right? Open in a new window. So this is a mind mapping tool that meshes well. It's a Chrome app, like I said, and connects with Google Drive and is free. Inspiration's not free. And then just while this is opening, it also, I like it as opposed to some others because you can see across the top it has very clear tools in the toolbar. Why don't you go there? Yeah. And I'm not going to spend any more time on this right now, but it has, you just add new bubbles, you can make the print larger, smaller, you can change the colors, and that toolbar just stays right there and it's really easy to use. So, going back to our PowerPoint, those tools were Inspiration and MindMup. And the next thing is graphic organizers. And graphic organizers are paper or whatever platform where we are taking and physically organizing the information to help us process it, record it. And go here to my camera. And I have some printed PDFs of samples of graphic organizers. And these are from the readwritethink.org website. Here we can see a persuasion map. And these are printed examples, but they also on the website, I'm going to pull up the Chrome again. They also on the website have these set up to be interactive, which is really nice for students to be able to type into them. And so I'm just going to click on it, and it should open it as a accessible. Yeah, that one didn't. Okay. Type PDF that you can type into, and see if I can get one to open. So this is readwritethink.org, and it wants, yeah, okay. Well, that's what it looks like. And then you just simply click inside the boxes, and it lets you type into them and save it, email it. So that's a nice way for taking notes and or organizing information. And the next thing is an app on the iPad called CardFlow. And this is a really nice, there's a basic free version. And I'll show you that in a moment. And then Padlet is another one. It is the graphic here in the bottom right. And it is another one that is like a bulletin board with information cards or pieces that you are able to organize. And I just wanted to include that because that is a cross-platform tool. CardFlow, I believe, is just on Apple iOS. So switching to the camera view, this is CardFlow. I'm going to open that. So these are the different boards that have been set up. And here I've got a robots board. And let me zoom in a little so you can see that a little better. So card flow basically works with index cards. There I create a new one. I can write on it. I can write, you know, a money sign, and then I'm done. It's there. I can move it around where I want, so I can organize. I can use these for headings and then put cards below it. I can also use text, typing into it. Check, go back, go back. And so there are those. Those could be notes. Those could be moved around, organized, and then saved. And here on this demo one, you can see they have some different things going on. And you can set it to lock to a grid, or you can just move it anywhere you want. And they also work like flashcards, so you can flip them over and write a note on the back of it. I won't go into that right now. So that is Card Flow, and it is operates nicely on the iPad. And back. So graphic organizers. And then moving on. So as we begin to work with some of our information that we have recorded and we are processing and we are learning, and we want to start moving towards a goal, towards a project, there's a couple tools that I wanted to just show real quick that can be helpful in that process. The first is called an assignment calculator, and this is a University of Minnesota. It doesn't matter. It's free. It's just web-based. And, whoops. Just pull that up right here. So it's useful because if you have all this information or you're doing your research and then you need to know what the next steps are that you are going to take, then you can click on research paper. And you enter a start date and a due date, and then it fills out basically an outline of your steps and has some helpful tips on steps that you take in order to organize your information and go down that process for your end project. And then the other thing that I wanted to show you is the Writing Navigator. And that is what this is. This is another free tool for teachers and students. And it has 4 different modules. And it is basically a guided walkthrough of planning and preparing to write a paper. So what I like about it is, you know, if we have all this information and the ways that we've organized it, and then this takes us through and you fill in the boxes, and it helps you to build and create an outline and then take that to the writing process. So our next webinar that we're going to do later in the month will be focusing on some of these next steps of learning and review and organizing information. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to this in just a second, but I want to just again point out that we have part 2 coming up March 22nd, same time, 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern time, and that's going to be on multisensory learning and review. And then part 3 is on managing focus and attention. Again, same time. It's going to be on May 3rd. We have just a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. Are there any questions that we want to cover?
Kind of going back to audio notes. Somebody
Okay.
wanted to know, sounded like audio note was a great tool, but they wanted to know if there were any drawbacks, limitations on size, Wi-Fi.
The question is if there's any drawbacks to audio note. One thing maybe I would say is that with the audio settings, you are not able to customize the audio settings. So a consideration is that it's always going to have better, clear audio if you can sit closer to the speaker. You are going to capture in all of, other surrounding audio. So if there's students talking or scribbling or, shuffling papers, whatever, you're going to capture all of that. So that would be one thing that comes to mind. Is there another question?
Yep. All of my students have to deal with Turnitin, and I'm not sure if Turnitin is a program or if she's
You know.
And some of these
No, it is a
apps,
program.
they're capturing stuff that can't be used because of plagiarism issues.
Do you know the program?
I think Turnitin is maybe reviewing work for plagiarism. So I assume what they're asking about is like with Diigo and SiteLighter and those things that are grabbing that information. And I do like to really use that warning with students, is that this tool can make it a little bit too easy for you to think, here's my information, here now it's my paper. So
And I'll add with that, with those tools, especially SiteLighter, when you are capturing that highlight, because it is word for word, there is quotations around it. And so when you are moving it from your notes to your outline and to your draft, it's already citing it for you. It's putting the citation in there and having the quotes around it, so that it helps to avoid the accidental misuse of that, or maybe a student just is forgetting to put the quotations there. So it will be kind of built in to help them through that, if that answers that question. So we are out of time, and we would appreciate you to fill out the evaluation, and we thank you for joining us today.
yeah, plagiarism.